Hello there, and welcome to Talking Nerdy, the show where we take various story arcs and events from current comics and we cover them. I'm your host, Obi-Wan Jabroni. Now, our story today is Infinite Destinies number 5 through 8. Continuing where we left off with this event 2 weeks ago, we have this week that consists of 4 annuals showing who and where all the Infinity Stones are and setting up the future of the entire Marvel Universe. So, with that, let's start talking nerdy. First up, we have Thor Annual number 1, written by Aaron Cooter, with art by Cam Smith, and colors by Chris O'Halloran. Infinite Destinies Part 5. Now, we open in the realm of the Night Elves, Afelheim, and we see the Light Elf leader, Lady Featherwine, walking through the streets. And we learn that the city is being set up for a massive party for all of the 9 realms to celebrate the 1 year anniversary of the end of the War of the Realms. And as she's walking through, the Bifrost opens up in the town square, and Allfather Thor arrives with representatives from all the other 7 realms. And each of the reps is introduced by Lady Featherwine as they step through the Bifrost. And the last is the Midgar representative, Hawkeye, but he is introduced as Spider-Man instead. And Clint's face turns red, and Thor quickly reintroduces him correctly and tells Lady Featherwine that he's sorry that Spider-Man couldn't make it. Now, later at the feast, the Light Elf High Priest Everdrop approaches the head table with Thor and gives a little bit of a speech here. Good evening, my Lady Featherwine, and the most well-met Allfather Thor. I am Everdrop of the Green, caretaker of the Quaryak. Many eons ago, your father Odin once gifted upon the people of Afelheim a seed from the great Yadrill's tree. Quarak, the tree of life, has been a great boon to us. I dare say without Quarak, our forest would still be saplings after being burned to the ground during last year's war. As a thank you for the kindness and for your valor in the past, I come bearing gifts. And for the illustrious Allfather Thor, I gift you with the rare fruit of the Quarak. As the fruit blooms, it will release a pollen that will fortify your vitality and encourage health and happiness. For the warriors gathered, I prepare cuttings from the Balakor bush, which has a similar effect, though not nearly as potent. And Thor leans in to smell the dish when it explodes in a cloud of gold smoke, and Thor and everyone around him passes out. And he awakens on a battlefield and realizes he is at the fight with Loki that forced Midgard to form the original Avengers. And he's confused as Loki charges and attacks him, and he spins his hammer in the air, calling a massive wave of lightning to strike the ground, as he yells, "No more lies." Now, back in reality, Everdrop has brought the unconscious Thor to the Quarak tree, and something purple is wrapped around his head. He throws Thor onto the ground and rips off his own face to reveal that he isn't the Everdrop at all. He is really a bald purple man. And he gives a bit of a speech to the unconscious Thor here. You know what, now that we have this moment, all of your friends asleep, your mind trapped between 2 universes, there's something I want to get off my chest. You see, it took me a long time to make my way into your universe. Oh, right, I forgot. My name's Volg, and I'm from a different universe. Where was I? Right. It took me a really long time to reach this universe. I had to travel here one particle at a time. I watched as the people of Afelheim peacefully got along. I can honestly say I was worried. You see, I come from a people who literally feed off chaos and violence. Before your little War of the Realms, I was nearly convinced I'd starve here. How wonderful it was to be able to find out about the other realms. As far as I can tell, your realm comes with every flavor of chaos and violence. I doubt I could have found a better feeding ground in 100 lifetimes. Defeat is the most bitter pill for someone so proud to swallow. Defeat and humiliation. This is building nicely. A little longer and I will be able to bridge these realities. Bridge the realities, create utter chaos, and feast. You see, Odinson, I am only an ant. I seek out food for the colony. Once I have created enough chaos here in your home, my brethren will come and swarm down upon you all. By sending your essence across reality, I am poisoning that other version of you. He will know nothing but hate and fear. After killing your brother Loki and being defeated by Mangog, Odin banished you. Regret and shame shall rule your heart. Fear of not being strong enough, not being worthy. The fear grows, it matures into hate. You make alliances. You do what you must to be free of the underworld. You become the champion of Hela. You lead the armies of the dead, the dark elves, the frost giants, and every vile creature you can imagine. You lead them home to Asgard. Warriors from Midgard stand against you as well. They all fall, and you become known as Thor Borkin, god of blood and thunder. He comes now, Thor Borkin, to bathe in your blood, and a portal starts to open behind Volag. Now, at this point, Volag raises Thor up by his throat, and two arrows fly through the air at them, one of them hitting Volag in the shoulder and knocking him back, and the other rips the wrappings from Thor's face, waking him up. And we see Hawkeye and a mountain giant representative standing on the opposite shore with their bows drawn. Thor tells them to go save everyone else. He will deal with Volag and Borkin. As he raises his hand and Mjolnir flies into it. He lunges and hits Volag with lightning and charges towards Borkin. He drops his hammer on his foot, pinning him to the ground, and wraps him up in a big bear hug, saying, "This is Volag's fault, not yours." And he calls the Bifrost down to send him back to his own reality. And as the smoke clears, Volag tells him another time then, and he disappears in a cloud of gold smoke. Lady Sif and Hawkeye join Thor's side, and together they go to rejoin and continue the celebration, ending this issue. Taking us to Guardians of the Galaxy Annual number 1. Written by Al Ewing, with art by Flavano, and colors by Rochelle Rosenberg. Infinite Destinies Part 6. Now, we open up at a bar on Nowhere. And Hercules is at the bar drinking and talking with the bartender when a blonde, shirtless man crashes through the roof and lands next to Hercules on the ground. He recognizes Hercules, and we learn that the man's name is the Prince of Power. Herc tells him that he is the Prince of Power and has been for millennia. And the prince laughs and says, "Not anymore. There's a new prince now. And that he is here and that Herc is in the past." Sorry, misread that. And at that point, three huge aliens enter the bar asking where the Prince of Power is. And Prince points to Herc saying, "You mean him?" And the leader says, "No, I mean you. Now return the emerald you stole." And he charges at the prince. Herc and the prince start to fight with the aliens. And as they fight, Herc asks what's going on and for the prince to tell him everything. Now, during this fight, the prince gives a monologue slash very He-Man like history of himself. And he says, "I was born 22 standard years ago in the month of February. on the far-off planet Muscula. And I was born second in line to greatness. Anyway, on my 20th year, at last, I attained my full station as an apprentice paperclip sorter. It was vital work, yet I felt strangely unfulfilled. Meanwhile, my brother grew into a hero he was born to be. But he was feeling unfulfilled as well, and he found himself searching for answers from the wizard Anseros in his secret cave of answers on the legendary Mount Answers. I wasn't present for that fateful meeting, but Magister had butt dialed me on his way to the mountain, so I heard it all. And as my brother's bottom hung up on me, my dissatisfaction at my life's course boiled over. At that exact moment, fate chose to heed my ill-chosen words. There was no way I could know, no way I could possibly have guessed. But a glowing hunk of solid crystal that mysteriously appeared in my snack bowl was not a jelly bean at all, but the infinity stone of power. And not one of the boring ones either. Needless to say, I was immediately fired for transforming into a being of pure muscle during work hours, but my job didn't matter, for I had become my true self at last. Feats of strength, feats of courage, and more feats of strength. But there were still those who remained neutral about my new power, including my brother. And he did. Again, the world taunted me. How dull it seemed to be limited to the wizard's stuffy old ideas. But tragically, my eye was drawn to one paperback in particular, Count Thinkula's Mind Strength for Dummies, and I stole it from the wizard. The lessons of the Count Thinkula were long and arduous, but they worked. By thinking of nothing, even more than usual, I was able to forge a direct link with the Power Stone inside of me. And an awesome battle. Sorry, the Power Stone inside of me. Oh, I am so sorry, guys. Um, so, with my full powers set on lock, I convinced Magister to take the fight to Rapscullion once and for all. And an awesome battle it was. During the fight, my brother was felled, and I picked up his sword. Boosted to infinity, the Sword of Strength did its noble work, and destroyed all evil it touched, down to the core. And when you destroy half a planet, it turns out that it's not very good for the other half. In an instant, planet Musculo was no more, and the only survivor was the one who unthinkingly caused its doom. Now, stunned and all the enemies defeated, Herc asks how the prince survived. And he tells them that he can hold his breath for 10 minutes, and while waiting, he was saved by Blackjack O'Hare. And Herc tells them he knows something about hurting those he cares about, and that it must torment the prince. Prince says it does endlessly, but he can't think about it, or he will go mad. And it's easier to be a stupid man with this kind of power than an envious one with none. Herc wraps around the arm around the prince's shoulder and says, "It's a hard thing to be alone in guilt, but someone needs to keep an eye on you. We just need to talk about that name." And they walk off together towards the bar, ending this issue. Leading us into Miles Morales Spider-Man Annual number 1. Written by Saldin Ahmed, with art by Luca Marseca, and colors by Fernando Cifuente. Infinite Destinies Part 7. Now, we open up in Red Hook, Brooklyn. A man is walking down the road, following his phone's GPS, trying to find a dive bar his friends told him about. When he hears a growl behind him, he turns and a creature jumps on him, ripping him to shreds. And we switch to Jersey City. We see a foreign family playing cards. The grandma stands up and her eyes start to glow, and she says it's free and preying on people. I can only see one burning eye. The Cyclops is free. And the teen gets up and goes to the roof, and we learn his name is Foddy. And he gets to the roof and starts to glow in a blue flame and turns into a monster hunter named Amulet. Now, back in Brooklyn, Miles is swinging by and he sees blood on the street below. He lands to investigate and his spider sense goes off. And he is knocked back as by a giant creature, Cyclops creature. Miles quickly recovers and hits the Cyclops with his venom blast, but it has no effect on him, and it punches him back down to the ground. It charges, but before it gets to Miles, Amulet jumps between them and puts up a blue shield and tells Miles that he has his back. The Cyclops stumbles backwards and Miles tries to web it up as Amulet charges towards it. It easily breaks the webs and grabs Amulet. And Amulet tells Miles not to worry about him. There should be a strange artifact somewhere nearby. And Spidey swings around the area and finds a creepy little doll sitting on a windowsill and grabs it as he shoots webs at Amulet, yanking him free from the Cyclops. Now, Amulet instantly smashes the doll, and as he does, the Cyclops is enveloped by blue flames and disappears completely. Miles says that the cops and the ambulance are on their way and that they need to go, and they go off to a nearby rooftop together. Once up there sitting, Miles asks what the creature was, and Amulet gives a slight monologue here. It was a Cyclops, an evil monster made with ancient magic. 1,500 years ago, monsters invaded Baghdad. Demons, ghouls, Cyclops, 1,000 of them, tearing through the streets, eating people's babies. The army of the devil, they were called, before the books were burned to cover it all up. No one knew where they came from. They would destroy the whole city, but then this wizard named Red Owl shows up and promises to save everyone. Using his magic, Red Owl banishes all the monsters, binding them into ordinary objects like a necklace, a bowl, or a doll. The objects are sealed away and everyone in the city is thankful. But the Calfee, that's like a king and the Pope, right? He's one of these uptight guys who thinks he knows everything about religion. And he's jealous of all the love Red Owl is getting. Even though Red Owl's power is righteous, the Calfee says God forbids magic, and calls Red Owl a witch in league with the demons. The Calfee has the wizard put to death, but as his head is falling from his shoulder, Red Owl snaps. He curses those he just saved for betraying him. He sends 1,000 cursed things scattered across the earth, each object fully ensorcered with the spirit of a monster. See, since Red Owl's day, my family has been pledged to find the 1,000 cursed things and seal them away again, so that it doesn't happen. And they are interrupted by a giant bird who swoops in, hitting them both, and grabs Miles and flies away. It flies towards the park with Amulet in pursuit and drops Miles in front of a red-cloaked old man. The man calls the bird a fool and says that it brought the wrong kid, and for it to kill the spider. The bird lunges at Miles, and he jumps and tries to swing away, but it smashes into him and pins him to the ground with its talons. Amulet appears in the trees above and yells no and jumps onto the bird, instantly engulfing it into his blue flames and killing it. Miles and Amulet confront the man, and he says no, the Red Owl will be reborn, and he twists the red jewel on a ring on his finger. And Amulet quickly puts up a shield as the man explodes into a storm of fire. And as the fire dies out, Amulet lets his shield down, and they see that all that remains of the old man is a pile of ashes. Miles asks if Amulet's okay, and he says yeah, with a sad expression on his face. Miles puts a hand on his shoulder and tells him that it don't get any easier, but a lot of lives were saved because of them today. And that if Amulet's ever in Brooklyn again, to look him up and he'll show him all the best spots. Amulet says sure, smiles, and they go their separate ways, ending this issue. Taking us to our final issue, Avengers Annual number 1. Written by Jed MacKay, with art by Travel Foreman, and colors by Jim Campbell. Infinite Destinies Part 8. Now, we open at a diner off of Route 66, and we see a blue and red Darth Maul-like android sitting in a booth by himself, and he is approached by 3 locals, and they tell him to get out. They don't want mutants, aliens, robots, or any of that kind around these parts. And the android says he is a third life form called synthetic persons, and goes into a rant about how different he is between robots, androids, humans, mutants. And one of the men grab him and take him outside and throw him to the ground. And before they can attack him, another man with a robot arm interrupts them and tells them to leave the little guy alone. They attack the new guy instead, and he easily defeats them all. The man introduces himself as John Cray, and offers the android, who he's learned is named Ward, a ride to a different diner. And as they walk towards Cray's truck, one of the men yells that the Sapien League will hear about this Cray. Now, meanwhile, at Avengers Mountain, Cap and Iron Man are in Tony's workshop and talking about both of their encounters with the resurfacing Infinity Stones. Cap says that they have confirmed IDs on 3 of the stones. Star with the Reality Stone, Overtime with the Time Stone, and Quantum with the Space Stone. And Tony tells him he has a new device running that will alert them as soon as another stone appears, and puts out their unique energy signature, and they can immediately trace it off that. Now, back on Route 66, Ward and John Cray are at a different diner and a few miles down the road. And are eating while they debate about whether androids have a soul or not. And a car pulls up outside, and 4 masked and armored Sapien League members get out and immediately start to shoot up the whole diner with machine guns. Now, they finish firing and just shredding the building. They enter and tell all the humans to get out. They only want the Freak and John Cray. Ward is huddled over an injured John Cray as he looks up at the men, and a massive orange beam comes down from the sky and explodes around Ward. At that same moment at Avengers Mountain, Tony's stone machine goes off, alerting them. Now, as the smoke clears, we see all of the Sapien League dead, and Ward standing in the middle of the diner, frozen place. A voice in his head tells him that he has been chosen to be the host for the Soul Stone. And Ward bends over and picks up John Cray and takes him outside, where he is confronted by Cap and Iron Man. Tony tells him to put Cray down and that they don't want to hurt him, but there is a lot of bodies and a massive signature coming from him. Ward says he just needs time to think, and Cap tells him they want to help, so please come with us. Ward's voice suddenly changes, and he says he will not, and he summons soul ghosts of numerous villains, heroes, and creatures from the past. And they all charge and attack Cap and Iron Man. Now, Cap and Iron Man are easily taking them out until Ward sends a soul of themselves to fight each other. The Cap soul fighting Iron Man soul fighting Cap. And as the fight rages on, Ward gets control for a second and calls off his ghosts. And he tells them that Cray needs medical attention, and he will stop hostilities immediately if they leave him alone and help John Cray. Cap agrees and asks what the stones want and why are they all here on Earth. And Ward gives a little bit of a monologue here. We want to become more than we once were. We are combining ourselves with humans, people, to become something new, like synthesis. My purpose has been fulfilled. It's a strange feeling. I wanted to learn about souls to find out if I had one, and now I have billions of them. What do I do now? Well, I find the others. Yes, power and time, reality and mind, and space. When we are closer to one another, we will become stronger, have access to more power. And when the six of us come together, then we shall discover what the final product of our synthesis is and how the world will change. And that ends the final issue of the first part of Infinite Destinies. I hope you enjoyed the video this week. Join us next week as we cover Star Wars War of the Bounty Hunters Chapter 3. Thanks for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below. Feedback is always welcome. You can also feel free to give our video a share and help spread the brand out. Now, you can find us on the Jabroni Nerd Network Facebook page and on Twitter at Jabroni Network. So, until next week, guys, keep talking nerdy.